So thank you for inviting me at this workshop. I'm really pleased to be there. So I'm assistant professor at the University of Rennes. I'm sorry, I will speak in English just to do... So I will talk about the biogeochemical and hydrosedimentary functioning of the Lake Grandlieu in response to physical forcing. It's an upcoming research project. I'm not alone. There is many people. In particular, Jean-Marc Gillier, who will talk just after. The eutrophication of aquatic ecosystem induces a strong modification of plankton succession. In particular, we've got a loss of phytoplankton diversity in terms of both species and also functional traits, such as the size of the species. With eutrophication, we've got many cyanobacteria blooms, as we see just before, which led to increase in turbidity, decline of macrophyte, higher bacterial decomposition, anoxia event, and often we've got toxicity associated with such bloom. You've got there a surface bloom, and when we take some water and put in a bottle, we can see that some cyanobacteria accumulate over a few centimeters. It can be huge, and in this small gradient, this small part, there will be a strong physical and chemical gradient and a big change of the condition. I will speak about that just after. Shallow lakes are particularly exposed to cyanobacteria blooms because of the vicinity of the sediment. So the lakes are sensitive to wind mixing and resuspension of sediment. It's associated with release of nutrients such as phosphorus. And the light availability tends to be also higher if we take the average light within the water column. The water temperature can change quickly in such lake because they've got a small inertia, physical inertia. So they cool quick and they warm quick. And we can have, over a short time period during the day, a strong vertical gradient in temperature, up to 10 degrees over a few centimeters. Of course, the macrophyte will influence all the physical environment and the stability of the sediment and potentially the turbidity. So, shallow lakes have two alternative stable conditions, which are already known. A clear state, which is considered as healthy, with many macrophytes, and a turbid state, which is considered as degraded, with many blooms. And this B-stability of the shallow lakes are controlled by both the biotic and abiotic compartment. So every shallow lakes will have a low physical inertia. I mean, they can become turbulent or quite really quickly, depending on meteorological forcing. They can become cold or warm really quickly. So a large temporal variability is expected and is observed. And we will have strong short-term physical and chemical gradients which control the ecological functioning of the lake. I mean, even if it's short in duration and in space, it can have a huge impact for the ecological functioning of the lake. For extended shallow lakes, such as Grandlieu, they've got a complex basin, and we can see this lake at like a multi-connected lake with different local alternative states. This means that the trajectory for the restoration, for instance, will not be the same if we've got this connection between several lakes, because some can be in one state and other part can be in another state. So the global evolution, the global trajectory of the lake will be influenced by the assemblage. So locally, the bloom will be controlled by nutrient, water temperature, and physical forcing, and the surrounding environment, such as microphyte. So we know that shallow lake and lowland lakes are highly productive systems with many blooms, and this production is controlled by physical forcing, I mean mixing events of water body and resuspension of sediment. This lake will also have a significant memory effect of the sediment through a phosphorus stock, for instance, but also a positive feedback by cyanobacteria through the stock of the dormant cells, which can increase the blooms years after years. And these cyanobacteria will also control the water transparency. So these systems are quite complex. There is a high temporal variability associated with meteorological forcing. They respond quickly, and we will have alternation between phase of sedimentation and phase of resuspension. We will also have a high spatial variability at the scale of the lake with several parts, but also strong biological activity and biomass at the interface, at the air-water interface, and at the water-sediment interface. So small gradient. So in the future project, we want to follow this both interface and what's going on when the water column mixed. So we need to characterize processes at both interface, at small scales, in response to physical forcing, because it will control all the ecological functioning of the at least pelagic part of the lake. And we need to integrate the different time and space scale to characterize the trajectory. It will help us to define a state of reference, what can be the trajectory, the resilience trajectory, in particular if it's several connected lake. Can we increase our bloom predictability in a large lake? It's small lake, it's easier, but it's a large lake. What is a good sampling strategy, the pertinent scale, and can we find some specific indicators? So Grandlieu, I will not present Grandlieu now. It's the largest lowland lake of France. It's an exceptional site for biodiversity. And we know from people working on the lake that there is a spatial heterogeneity of water transparency until now. By now, there were many fragmented studies focusing on sediment, on water quality, input-output balance of nutrient, and there is many field survey of microphyte, birds, and fishes. But the current state of the lake is poorly known, in particular its biogeochemical and hydrosedimentary functioning. There is a lack of functional data to validate or invalidate the new water level management plan. So we need an interdisciplinary approach which will integrate tools from physics, from geochemistry, and from biology. For every shallow lakes, the idea is to study how physics, through wind mixing, but also the hydrology and the water level, will control the biogeochemical and hydrosedimentary flows and the internal dynamics of the blooms within the lake. For extended shallow lakes, such as Grandlieu, we would like to see if it's the physics which control the spatial distribution of the bloom in particular, or can we consider Grandlieu as a meta-community? Is it physics who just redistribute the biomass, or is there a local development of blooms and interacting communities which are linked by dispersion induced by mixing, for instance. So by meteorological forcing. So there is several steps in this project. The first step is specific to Grandlieu, but is needed for the following. We must characterize the balance between the input and output of the lake. We would like to measure it every day for the fluxes of carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus, and silica. And also follow all the suspended matter and the water fluxes using probes. In the second part, we would like to realize a topobathymetry of the lake using a new tools. It's a full waveform topographic LIDAR. We use that at the laboratory. In fact, the machine you can see there is we put this in a plane, and the machines, the sensor will put some light, red light and green light. So it sends a signal, and then it measures the reflected signal. So it gives something like this. For the red signal, it will stop with the ground and the water surface. So we can see the top of the canopy and the trees, the microphyte, and the ground. And the green signal will go through the lake and measure the bottom of the lake if the lake is clear. So we must do it during winter when the vegetation is low. So it can give a map really at the centimeter scale. It's an example of the rivers of the Sélune River, which is in the northwest of France. It's not really a good image. We've got better image at the laboratory, but the tools is new and the data are still we work on the data. So we would like to do it for the Lake Grandlieu. We would like also to test the use of drone with normal image, but also with hyperspectral imaging, coupled with field sampling to validate. Look, for instance, with the use of fluorescence probe like the fluoroprobe BBE. So we've got many drones also. This would allow us to differentiate the blooms. Where are they? And if there is several species, to see their distribution within the lake. We would like also to instrumentate the lake and measure the current and thermal structure of the water column every 10 minutes on 20 stations. It will give us the fine thermal structure and the response to wind forcing at a very short time scale. We will also have, when wind is forcing, the water move, and we will have the hydraulic slope of the lake. It will move a few centimeters. And we will be able to measure the waves at the millimeter scales. So the batillage. It gives us an idea of the erosion of sediment. So a prototype has been funded at the university, and we are manufactured it, and we will validate it next summer. So just quickly, it looked like this. We will have 20 like this with temperature sensor every centimeter, a pressure sensor, and there is another one set here to have the air-water interface, because of course the water level can change. And in the buoy there is the battery and the memory. And we've got a big station with a meteorological station to have an idea of the local weather. Each week, we will sample each station in terms of chemical and biology, and we will also analyze the photosynthetic activity using micro probes. It's at the scales of a few micrometer. And we will also make some isotope incubation. The idea is to see within this gradient of cyanobacteria what's happened and measuring the photosynthetic activity. I would like also to test the effect of the temperature gradient on photosynthetic activity, because the idea is that if we've got during even 2 or 3 hours a big increase of temperature, we will stimulate the cyanobacteria and increase the blooms. At the sediment water interface, there is some geochemists people working on the sediment who are associated. We will take some core of sediment and measure the nutrient fluxes in the laboratory. And we will also check the effect of biotubation by benthic macroinvertebrates, such as the crayfish. In the last part, we would like to develop the model already exists. We would like to use a specific model. So we've got people from the LESU, it's a model Pont et Chaussée in Paris. And we will develop a model to characterize the movement of the water and the sediment within the lake. So in the first part, it's more three-dimensional hydrodynamic and thermal model, but after, we would like to couple the ecological part. It will help us to analyze the different scenarios. If we change the water level, or if the catchment input change, or the meteorological condition, what will happen for the sediment and after for the blooms. I will not go in details, but the project is quite big and will last several years. But we would like to characterize the physical forcing with the local forcing using the microsensor, and the local biological forcing. And we will characterize the ecological functioning of the lake. Everything is not on this on this graph. We would like to add, for instance, emergent insects, but I cannot say everything now. So we've got a pre-project. We will try to prepare this big project and test some solution like the drone, the hyperspectre. Is it possible for Lake Grandlieu? Is it adapted? Thank you very much.
Bien, merci beaucoup. Thanks for the interest in measuring again. So your approach is very much bottom up, measuring a lot and trying to get the system in your fingers. Did you think of any experiments to be developed in mesocosms or something like that, removing part of the bottom?
Yes, also more for the crayfish. It's complicated to have an idea of the biotubation, for example, on the sediment. So we would like to have an experimental approach and maybe an experimental approach within the lake.
Yeah. Yes, I was thinking of that because that the size of the lake is not that big that it is not possible. But on the other hand, you can measure for ages, and you should do, but the balance between the two, have clear experiments.
Yes.
Combined with good measurements could be the solution
here. It will be
here.
needed for the model. Mm-hmm. And also, I hope the size of the lake, we will have quite an heterogeneity, and we will be able to use this heterogeneity to understand better what's happened between the macroinvertebrates, the cyanobacteria, the macrophyte, and the sedimentary fluxes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Une autre question de la salle?
Did you assess the water quality according to the Water Framework Directive in your lake? Do you have a strategy for sampling and for assessment of the biocomponents?
Do they have already, or do I will do it?
To your lake here. I missed a result of what
There is no results yet.
Yeah,
It's
you had the physical part, and there's also a biological
yes,
part.
I give not enough detail about the biological and chemical parts, but of course we will follow all the chemical, all the nutrient, suspended matter, and the phytoplankton community, zooplankton community at the 20 station.
And the water quality is bad, according to Water Framework Directive, isn't it? It's bad. Or poor. Or moderate.
Yes, of course.
Of course.
Sorry.
Okay.
Merci. On prend une dernière question.
C'est juste une petite remarque opérationnelle. Vous êtes dans l'axe de la piste 11 de l'aérodrome de Nantes.
Ah oui.
Et avec la DGAC, je doute de votre autorisation.
Pour les drones.
Ah oui.
Technique. Après, ça c'est un des points qu'on doit voir. Apparemment, si le drone est attaché, on peut l'utiliser. Mais après, il faut voir au niveau des oiseaux. Enfin, voilà.
Il y a autorisation possible, 50 mètres. Et là, probablement, pour l'utilisation d'un drone, 30 mètres, ça passera. On a effectué, pour le syndicat du bassin versant de Grandlieu, pour la Jussie, modifié la Jussie dans les marais. Pour la traduction.
Enfin, c'est possible d'utiliser le drone même à la proximité de la zone aéroportuaire. Il y a un cadre réglementaire effectivement qui existe. On a usé ce cadre réglementaire dans le cadre de l'inventaire de la Jussie présente dans les marais de Saint-Marc-de-Coutais et Saint-Lumine-de-Coutais. Le drone ne devait pas voler au-delà de 30 mètres. Voilà. Et simplement, il peut monter aussi, enfin la réglementation l'autorise à monter jusqu'à 50 mètres. Donc à partir du moment que le protocole est bien présenté à la DGAC avec le timing,
Oui.
l'espace utilisé par le drone, il n'y aura pas de souci pour utiliser ce type de vecteur.
Merci beaucoup pour ces compléments. Merci beaucoup, Alexandrine.